exit interview doesn't mean anything. We get one little nugget. They may throw a offhand comment about something, and then we can go, okay, there's something about our business we need to think about, good or bad. But I said, it's doing paper for paperwork's sake. And I do know there are still some people that it blows my mind that give out references, meaning, would you rehire? Yes or no? Were they a good employee? Well, let me tell you about what Fred did back in 2020. And they do that, and going, okay, well, maybe in the end it doesn't really cost the business anything, because Fred would have to know that the new employer took that into consideration.
Welcome to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes, and today we've got Joric McLean with us. Joric is our resident HR expert. Joric is also the former HR manager for the NBA's Phoenix Sun basketball team. Joric's got decades of experience. I'm going to ask Joric to help us, to help you. We're going to answer some of your questions. But before we do that, I do want to remind you that if you do submit a question here and we answer that question while on air, Joric and I will send you a $10 Starbucks gift card as a way to thank you. And one other thing that I do want to mention is that I recently launched another YouTube channel. It's called Side Hustle Rules. If you're contemplating starting another career, a new career, and that new career means you're going to be starting a business, go over to Side Hustle Rules here on YouTube and subscribe to that channel. And what you'll get every single week is a new video, which will help you to start that side hustle, which possibly you can change or transform into a full-time gig. So now let's get to our questions. Joric, I want to welcome you here to Over 50 TV.
Hey, thank you. As always, happy to be here and looking forward to answering some questions.
Well, Joric, as I say frequently, buddy, I'm really happy to have you with us, because some of the knowledge, the experience that you can bring to our viewers is really invaluable. So let's just get right to the first question, and I'm going to read it here. And this is from a Gaylord Freeman. And Gaylord watched a recent video that you and I did called "Working After 50. What would HR tell you if they could?" And here's what Gaylord had to say. Gaylord says, "Young supervisors and young staffers are so playful and disrespectful at work to older workers. I just couldn't change to be like them. Therefore, I stayed to myself." And Gaylord wants to know, Joric, how should I have handled these situations?
Oh, that is a great question, and a conundrum that has come up often on your channel, especially with older workers. Before I answer it, I'll say 30 years ago, the opposite was the issue. Being young and way under, it took everything to get into the in crowd. I was right out of school, and it was sort of you stay over here and shut up. It was the older folks that ruled the companies, ruled the office. And you you wanted to be a part, and you wanted to emulate and get into that. Now it's almost turned upside down, where 35 and under now runs the office space or business, and the older workers are sort of left out. A couple of things, and I don't know if this would have made a difference, but I would have tried this for Gaylord, going right up to some of those people that the younger folks, the people that, let's say, are your kids' age or grandkids' age. Go to lunch, see if you have time at the water cooler to have a conversation about something, to get to know them. There might be a way on a human level that you have something of interest other than the fact of who signs your paychecks. Maybe there's sports, maybe there's science, maybe there's arts, maybe there's something there that you can connect in. And although you may not be in what you feel is the in group, or you feel like you're being disenfranchised or disrespected, there might be some areas where you can have a level playing field and even add something to the conversation because of your knowledge and experience on stuff. You might be able to tell stories that, wow, they had never heard before. That would be the first thing. And I think it's a general HR thing. If you have a problem with someone, go right to that person and see if you can work it out. The other thing is going to their managers and seeing if you can talk to the managers about some of the, especially if it's disrespectful, some of the conversation, or if you're being left out of conversations. That's something that the manager should be changing and leading the culture. So part of the problem may not just be the employees, it could be the managers are part of the problem. And then lastly, and this is one I don't have an answer for, if the heads of the organization, the department heads, the board, and the owners are all young, then you're in a tough spot, because now they kind of rule the roost. And if I'm in the same position, I might do what Gaylord did. I might kind of be frustrated, but I may just keep my head down and go, okay, I got so many years to retirement, or I leave and I try to look for another opportunity where I have a peer group that's at least my generation, so I can talk shop with. It's not a great answer to that, to Gaylord's question, but that's how I would try to get after those people and address it and talk to them and try to get to know them on a personal level. If that doesn't work, then sometimes you might have to either be quiet or find work someplace else. I wouldn't necessarily be quiet. I'd look for work someplace else.
Yeah, Joric, I really can't add anything to that. I think you covered it. I mean, absolutely. The number one thing you suggested, which is try to find a way that, some common ground with that person. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, yeah, you got to consider leaving. And that's always a tough way to go.
It is. It is.
Well, here's another question we got here, Joric, and this is sort of changing a little bit here. I got a question from a Susan Fokori. Susan watched a video that we produced, how people over 50 should optimize LinkedIn. And she says, hello, Lou, how can a career changer build new connections on LinkedIn? What say you, Joric?
Well, if you have the basic LinkedIn account, which I call the free account, you're allowed so many connections a month. If you pay for the premium, I think it's unlimited. But much like you're going to a job fair face to face and passing out business cards or resumes, you can go on LinkedIn, find the industries or the companies that you like, or find people that have the job titles that you're looking for, whether it be geographically, nationally, globally, and start connecting with them. And it's almost like a process of elimination. You make 100 invitations, maybe only 20 people respond and accept, but of those 20, then maybe half of them will have a dialogue where you're finding out how to get in with a company, what to say to the hiring manager. I would also, anyone that has recruiter or talent acquisition, hiring manager, something of that nature, of those companies or industries you want to work for, definitely hit them up. And yes, they understand you're looking for a job, but I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I want to work for XYZ company. Can I take you to lunch if I'm close by? Can I take you for coffee and pick your brain about things? Can we do a Zoom call like this? And can I have 15 or 20 minutes of time to say, hey, if I'm a career changer and I'm looking at something, I love your industry, I want to know how to get in the door. Who do I talk to? Can I use you as a reference? When I'm submitting something online, most things are online these days. Can I use your name? And if you happen to connect with 2 or 3 people from the company and you're able to use their names when you're submitting your resume that goes in with 1,000 others, there's a better chance of you getting the job. So for me, whether it's the free or the paid service through LinkedIn, you can connect with a number of folks and you go right for the people that are hiring, the people that have the job that you want to get, and the companies and industries that you're looking for. So many people are on LinkedIn that it's really the easiest. It's basically the old-fashioned walking into a room and passing out business cards at a job fair. That's the new version of it. But to me, that's the simple and direct way. It's what I've done throughout my career when I'm looking to make a change. And I think if she does that, she's going to be able to find connections that she never knew existed and actually be able to get the at least a phone interview, initial interview, or get a hiring interview at places that she never thought possible because she didn't connect with those people. So it doesn't hurt. The worst thing that happens is they don't respond to you. It costs nothing to send out an invitation.
Yeah, no, and I agree. One thing about LinkedIn, which I really like, is the fact that the people who are 45 plus are the dominant age group, the dominant demographic on LinkedIn. So you're in good company when you're on there networking. So I like that answer. Thanks a lot, George. And along that line, along that vein, I guess I should say, is we got a question, or really a comment here, suggestion. I think this was good, from an SB. It's ESPY. And SB watched our video, The Most Satisfying Jobs for Older Workers. And SB just made a comment, which I think is going to be helpful here. SB says, a great place to find out about how a company treats its workers is Glassdoor.com. Hope this helps. Have you found the same thing with Glassdoor?
I have. In fact, I've told people throughout my career, and Glassdoor isn't that old, but it's in my last job is when it was created. I've told people, quite honestly, if you like the experience, leave a review for us, because it's kind of like working at a restaurant. If you have a good review, that helps. Bad review, that doesn't. And there are people that were not happy and left bad reviews talking about working conditions or wages or whatnot. I think it's a pretty fair place to be able to go to. And it's the one that has the biggest name. There's a couple others that are not as popular, but I certainly would go there. If I'm looking for work, and I'll say specifically North America, I'm going to go there and check it out. And most likely I can get information without having to pay for the other services that Glassdoor offers. I can get basic info on salary range for a potential job. I can find out about certain working locations, which are, they won't mention managers by name, but sometimes they'll say, well, that plant in Detroit, stay away from, or hey, that one in Chattanooga is really good, or management's really good. They usually have a plus or minus for management. Those are all very helpful when you're trying to make a decision, because most of us looking for work, it's a lot of referral. You're finding a friend who can get you into a place. That's not always as applicable today, whether you're a young worker or older worker, that you have to do more legwork. And one of the ways you can find out how to know a little bit about the company before you start is Glassdoor. It gives you a little, it's almost like a theatrical trailer. It gives you a preview of what you may be getting into, both good or bad. I think everyone should be checking that out, even if it's a small mom and pop shop and they're going, they probably aren't on Glassdoor. There's a good chance they might be, for good or bad reasons. There might have been employees leaving reviews. And so check it out for sure. It's a great comment.
Yeah. And I thought it was very helpful, which is why I wanted to bring it up here. Now, I've got another question, or I should even say a comment from a Michael H. And Michael watched our video, Can HR Force You into an Exit Interview? And that video, I've got to tell you, was very, very popular, just pretty much like any video we do on HR. I think our audience has had enough experience with HR that, they've got some definite feelings and comments. So here's what Michael H. says about exit interviews. He says, exit interviews are usually a waste of time and to protect the company, but not always. He said, I once left a job to move across the country to take care of a loved one. I was liked and considered a good employee. And basically what he was saying is, I was told at the end, if I move back, just stop by and I will always have a spot if I want it. So what he's saying is, hey, exit interviews normally are a waste of time, but sometimes they can work out. What do you say, Joric?
I say he gave the best answer. I can't top that answer. I usually tell people, so first, there's no legal requirement to do an exit interview. And now the only exception might be certain jobs where someone would literally have in a contract that they have to fulfill certain obligations of work, which they could tie in. That's going to be the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. You don't have to. What I would say is it's a good habit. It's a half hour of your time, 45 minutes. If you're leaving on good terms and you feel good about the company, okay, why not sit down and answer some questions? And to his point, if you ever think that you're going to come back to that business, don't burn the bridge and go through whatever the paperwork and protocols are. It doesn't hurt. But in many cases, he's absolutely right. It's the business gets more out of why you're leaving than you're going to. You're leaving. They want to know the why, and do we need to change salaries, job descriptions, something going on with managers. but I agree. He gave the perfect answer. It's something that I would do. There are times that I've done it, and even though I've been in HR, there was one situation where they wanted to do an exit interview, and I sat down. They asked the first question, and I said, "We're done here," and then I left. So great. He's got the perfect. That's like Webster's dictionary of how to handle an exit interview. He's got the perfect answer.
Well, that really slides us right into the next comment from Fred Slocum. Yeah. He watched our video, Why You Should Never Do an Exit Interview. And here's what Fred had to say. It's so fascinating to me. It's so interesting because he said this. He just says, hey, they meaning HR, they can be sued for former employee defamation. And what he's saying, obviously, is that if you're a former employee and HR talks negative about you, they can be sued for defamation. My thing, and I'm wondering what your thought is, Joric, how often is a person who sues for defamation, if that's really what the legal term is, how often are they successful?
It's rare. And when I say rare, 10% of the time they'll come out on top. And of that 10%, their damages will be awarded like $1. So, and that sounds, so that's not an answer anybody wants. Realistically, more companies, not all, but more companies, when they're doing reference checks, and I think this is where he's going with it, is when a future company is referencing him, and I was his HR manager, and they say, okay, is he eligible for rehire? No comment. Usually what we had done for the last 8-9 years, and so when I'm saying 2012 and beyond, we gave what was called a neutral reference, and that was per our attorney. We gave, yes, you worked here. This was your job title. Didn't give salary, didn't give rehire status. So in other words, Charlie Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Ted Bundy worked for me. And so what can you tell me about them? Can't tell you anything. Would you rehire them? Can't tell you that. That's unfortunately where much of the world is. And because of the defamation, because as much as I can say that it only is successful 10% of the time, and oftentimes people only get $1. The one things the times you see the news or national publications are the 1 in a million where somebody got the lottery, meaning they got millions of dollars for defamation because a past employer defamed them or said bad things, or then the new employer pulled a contract or pulled an offer. That is 1 in a million. That doesn't make employees feel good. I mean, if you're an employer, then you're happy about that. But an employee, you have to be very careful with that. And I do know there are still some people that it blows my mind that give out references, meaning, would you rehire? Yes or no? Were they a good employee? Well, let me tell you about what Fred did back in 2020. And they do that and going, okay, well, maybe in the end, it doesn't really cost the business anything because Fred would have to know that the new employer took that into consideration. But it's just a bad practice, because the unfortunate thing is, yes, as a future employer would like to have some of that information from a past employer, but this is where, as a future employer, me as a hiring manager, I go to LinkedIn to find out about Fred, and I find out where he worked and whatnot. And I got to take that as face value, as it being accurate. But I try to stay away from anything that's going to get attorneys involved. Attorneys cost too much money for what they do, and I don't like courtrooms. I've been in courtrooms. I've dealt with employee and legal situations. I just want to stay away from it. So he's right. You're kind of having any type of defamation. Hopefully, employers are not giving out much information. Now, the bad thing is they're not giving out much information, but that's the world that we live in today.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, though, Joric, I've seen this happen. I've commented on it quite a few times. Our viewers have also commented on it. Is that there's no benefit? There's very little to no benefit to give an exit interview, unless, like you said, unless you've got a great relationship with them, you want to come back, or it's a possibility. So yeah, I can see that in that case, give it. But otherwise, why risk it?
Yeah, nobody has in my career, sometimes managers would get upset. Well, they didn't do the exit interview, so we're not going to rehire them or bring them back. And they said, exit interview doesn't mean anything. We get one little nugget. They may throw a offhand comment about something, and then we can go, okay, there's something about our business we need to think about, good or bad. But I said, it's doing paper for paperwork's sake. So I completely agree with it. But like we mentioned in the prior comment in question, if you have a good relationship, do it. Otherwise, don't do it. Just say no. Just move on. That way, because the more you talk, oftentimes, as I've done in my own case, in my own life, sometimes I talk myself into bad situations. And sometimes the less I say, the better off I am. So sometimes an exit interview, just don't deal with it. Just say no.
Cool. I agree with you, Joric. And on that note, we're just going to say we're finished for today, but we're certainly not finished for our future videos, because there are lots of questions that come in. We can only get to so many. As I mentioned previously in this video, if a viewer makes a comment on one of our videos, and we read that, you answer that question on the air, then what is going to happen is we're going to send them a $10 Starbucks certificate via email as a way of saying thank you for commenting on the video. But we're only going to do that if if Joric reads and answers your question on air. So I want to thank you for watching this video, and I want to thank Joric McLean for being with us once again.
Hey, thanks so much. I love doing this, and please leave more comments, good, bad, or indifferent, because I want to be able to give you some the HR perspective on things. As much as you don't like HR, and oftentimes I didn't either. Please keep leaving comments and questions, because we want to get as many people informed as possible.
Cool. Well, Joric, thanks again. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon.
You bet. Thank you so much.